So I wanted to just create a little tutorial for you in case you print your own line drawings out at home so that you can transfer them to your paper. Now I have a free video that shows you how to use tracing paper in order to use your line drawing and then transfer that to your watercolor paper. But I know that when I first started using this method, way back when I first started painting in watercolor, I had never used Photoshop before and didn't know how to print an image larger than my printer could print, which was an 8.5 by 11. Well, you're not going to paint an 8 by 10 painting every single time. So if you want to paint something larger, you need to be able to know how to break your image down into smaller chunks so that you can print it in a larger scale and then transfer it to your paper. So let me show you what I mean. So I am in my Photoshop and this is a painting that I have got the line drawing for and I'm going to start doing relatively soon. So let me click on that and it opens up to this screen here, which is your working screen. And I'll have to tell you, I am still very much a novice when it comes to Photoshop. I can do some of the bare minimums, but all of these little things that you see over here, I don't know how to do a lot of those things. But the one thing that I can show you is how to make your image where you can print it in more than one section and transfer it to your paper. So what you'll want to do, once you have your image over here, come up here to where this says image in the bar. Click on that, then go down to the image size, and this will be brought up here. So right now, this one is in a 12 by 16. So I'm just going to leave it there. But if you wanted to change that and make it larger or smaller, then you could just simply say that you wanted to change this to a 14. You could do that, but then it's automatically going to change this number down here. See this little icon right here that kind of looks like some little links together? Well, if you click that off where you no longer see those little bars, let me click it again. See these little bars right here that are pointing from the width and the height to the chain? Well, if I click that, it turns it off. So let's say I wanted the width to be 14 and I wanted the height to be 18. Then I could just type those in custom and it would be the size I want it to be. But I'm just going to leave it at 12 by 16, which is where it is. So for now, I'm just going to come down here and click OK. So that means that this image, if I were to click print, would try to print 12 inches wide, 16 inches tall. Now the printer that I have does only print in a 12, or not a 12, an 8.5 by 11 size. So I know that in order to get this printed, I'm probably going to have to do this in, let me think, so it's 12 wide, 8.5. So I think what I'm going to end up having to do is this. This is probably going to be the simplest method. I'm going to go up here to where it says view, click on view, and then I'm going to come down to where it says guides, and then scroll over to the right and down to where it says new guide, and click on that. And then I'm going to want to create a vertical guide, and it's already chosen right here. So the color is cyan, which is fine with me. You can change it to whatever color you want here. You can make it any of those. I'm just going to leave it with the cyan. And then right here where it says position, and it's right now it said it's 0. And I am going to put that in the center. So I'm going to make this 6 inches. Tell it OK. So here is the 6-inch line right down the center. Now I'm going back up to view again, coming back down to guides, going over to new guide, and I'm clicking on horizontal this time. So I know that it is 16 inches tall, so half of 16 is 8, which is what I'm going to put right in there, tell it OK. So now you see the image is divided with these lines into 4 sections. So the next thing that I'm going to do is come right over here to where this little dotted rectangle is. It's called the rectangular marquee tool. I'm going to click on that. Then you'll see that my cursor has turned into kind of like a, well, I don't know what you call it. It's got a name for this, but I can't think of it. But it's got a little dot in the middle and then the plus sign on the side of it. What? Crosshairs. Crosshairs, that's the name. I'm going to take that dot and put it right up here in the corner of my photo here. And I'm going to drag that over in line with that vertical and horizontal cyan line that I have in there. Now before you let go of this, pay attention to the width and the height. It's 7994 by 8002. That's probably about as close as I'm going to get it. So you'll remember those numbers, okay? So we can just break it down and say 6 by 8 because I think we're close enough to those sizes that it's going to be okay. So I've still got my mouse button held down. The width I'm going to go with 6 inches. The height I'm going to go with 8 inches. So I've let off my mouse. Now I'm going to click File, New. That'll bring you back here to this page. So I'm going to say Custom. Over here, I'm going to change this to 6 inches. Down here, I'm going to change this to 8 inches. Then I'm just going to leave my resolution at 300. Right here, I've got it at RGB color, 8 bits. Transparent background is fine. Create. So now we have our custom size over here that we can actually print from an 8.5 by 11 size printer from. We'll take our cursor, come back over here to our image. You can still see that those little dotted lines are going around there. Now on my computer, I have a Mac. I'm going to hit the Command and C, which means that I have copied this little selection here. I'm going to go back over to the section that I created, hit Command V, and look at there, it popped that in. So now that we have the image here, what we would do is tell it we want to print it. So hit File, click Print, and then up here, make sure that you have your right printer selected. Under the print settings, you want to take a look and see how many copies you've got chosen, the paper size is correct. So down here under Media and Quality, I've got photo matte paper chosen. However, your printer may be different from mine and the list of options you have might be different from what mine says. I'm sure that you'll probably have some photo options there. So you may want to choose plain paper or copy paper, whatever your printer might say, and then you would click Save. Then you can tell it to print. Now, if you look at this, don't get yourself confused. You want to remember that you're not printing the full 8.5 by 11 size. You're printing 6 by 8. So you would, of course, just go ahead and hit Print here, and it will print that out. So then what do? After this, you go back over to your image. So what we have here is, if you'll look up here in this section, when I have my marquee chosen, this single section is chosen right here, the single square. That means I can just grab this, clicking on my mouse and dragging this little dotted line right over here to the right-hand side and lining it up over here with my horizontal and vertical lines. Command C for copy, come over here and Command V to paste. Then I can tell it that I want to print, and your settings should save. So then all you have to do is hit Print again. And you just keep following this process. So now we're going back to our actual image. I'm going to left click on that block, and I'm going to make my image a little smaller so that I can actually move this around more easily. So I grabbed my little dotted square, Command C to copy, click on the other image, Command V to paste, then File, Print. All the settings should be the same, Print. Back to our image, left click on the mouse, drag that over to the right, Command C for copy. Back to this image, Command V to paste, File, Print, and Print. The next step in the process is you want to cut out the images that you're printing. So you're not going to see those little outlined drawings or dotted lines around your actual printed image. That's only on the screen. So what I used to do was I would just take a pen or a pencil and I would make a mark at the top and the bottom where I knew that that was at the edge of where the printed image stopped printing. Then you can just take a ruler and line that up, and you can make a mark and cut it out with scissors, or an easier process, honestly, I'm going to show you another method. Let me grab what I need over here. I didn't think about it beforehand. I've got this icky old cutting board that I just use for crafts and that kind of thing. And this is probably an easier method to make sure that you get your cut line really good and straight, unless of course you have access to a paper trimmer. If you do, then by all means use a paper trimmer. But you'll just want to line up your ruler so that, Let me zoom in here for a second because I really want you to see this. This is something that took me a while to learn, and I want it to be easy for you. So I'm going to zoom in closer so you can see what I'm talking about here. So when I'm lining up my ruler over here, see how I can still see some of the ink from my printer. So I'm just going to keep moving that ruler over until I just barely can see just a little teeny smidge of the ink. Then I've got an X-Acto knife, and I'll just cut this paper just like this, and I'm done. So then I can do the same thing, turn my image this direction. Let me zoom back out just a little bit so you can have more of a bird's eye view. So again, I'm lining my ruler up, and I'm just maneuvering it until I can barely see the little tip of one of the lines of ink. Then use my X-Acto knife and cut that out. So then you have this section of your line drawing cut out and ready to go. I've got these still printing, but let me go ahead and get this one out, and I'm going to show you this again, but in a faster speed this time. So I'm going to line this up, or let me tell you what, I'll show it to you in case you don't have an X-Acto knife. Basically, you're going to do the same thing with your ruler, line it up. I can just barely see the evidence that there's ink right there. Draw a line, turn it another direction, line that ruler up till I can just tell where the ink is, draw a line. Then you can take scissors and cut it out. So if you don't have an X-Acto knife, you can do it this way. I just like using an X-Acto knife because I feel like I'm going to get a straighter cut than relying on my eye and a steady hand, but I've done it this way. So whatever makes sense to you, whatever works for you is what you should do. Okay, so I've got this one just about cut out. Now let me show you how you start piecing all of this together. Let me get some of this mess out of the way first. Okay, so we know that these two pieces go together, and you can pretty much use whatever kind of tape you want to use. I've got this is just some tape that I use when I'm masking, and it's a 1/4 inch, or is it a 1/2 inch? That's a 1/2 inch wide tape. So then what I would do is I would take my line drawing and line it up just like I'm putting together a puzzle, put a piece of tape on there. Take another small piece and find an area where you don't need to have a line drawn, like right in there. I know that's a part of that basket that I'm not going to need to be drawing over, so I don't have to worry about trying to go through the tape. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more because I've got everything printed and I want you to be able to see much better. So I've got those two pieces put together. Now I know these two pieces go down here, so you do the same basic thing. You just line it up like you're putting together a puzzle. So we'll do this left side first. I'm going to line up all of the lines that need to go together. And sometimes when you're cutting it, you may not get your cuts straight. So there might be some places like over here, it doesn't fit together perfectly, and that is okay. As long as you realize that you've probably just made a cut somewhere on one side or the other that was too shallow or whatnot, and it'll cause that. Then we'll come over here and we'll slide this last piece in, and you'll have to make sure your lines are lining up everywhere. Put a piece of tape somewhere you know you're not going to have to draw pencil lines. And there you go. There is your larger printed image all put together so you can make a larger painting. Now, if you want to know how to transfer this to your watercolor paper, I do have another video that shows how that's done using transfer paper. So I would say go check that out. But anyway, I hope that this makes sense and that it'll be a valuable tool for you to use. And let me take this opportunity, if you haven't already, visit my website for online tutorials, some like this that are free, some that are paid. And the website address is www.ninasuggswatercolor.com. I'll have that right down here so you can see it as well. All right, so I hope that this was helpful to you. Have a fantabulous day.